Hello folks, welcome back to yet another session. As the entire country is looking towards celebrating Navratri, the victory of good over the evil, we are busy in our own victory, in our own battles, in our own challenges, overcoming them and conquering an important exam for all of us, which is SBI Clerk Mains. Technically, 10 days was what was allotted to us, and technically we are around what is known as the Shahara, wherein you are celebrating the 10th day of victory over evil. A lot of coincidences, yes, but the important aspect is these 10 days essentially are about the victory of good over the evil. The negative thoughts, the negative perceptions that we have in our mind, these 10 days guide us to overcome all of those. Right? So with that thought in mind, let's jump into the session meant for today. And it's a very interesting session where we're going to talk about parajumbles and the various variations. The short form for parajumbles is PJs, and it's a very fitting short form because if you do not attempt this question properly, then it may become a poor joke on you, right? Which is where a question that I get a lot of times is, sir, parajumbles attempt karna chahiye ki nahi, right? Or should I attempt parajumbles at all? It consumes time, and sometimes I may not get the answer correct. But the answer to that question is, had it been, let's say, in another exam like CAT, wherein you have a set of 5 sentences and you're just going to rearrange those sentences for one question or one answer, that is, then it still makes sense to probably just leave that question. But in the context of the exam that we're talking about, you get one particular paragraph and there are at least 4 to 5 questions following that, which means if you understand that paragraph correctly, and if you're able to do the job correctly, you'll be able to attempt at least 4 to 5 questions, which means that's a great roti or your great return on time invested, right? So which is where it's not easy to neglect parajumbles because it can actually give you a good chance to significantly boost your score. We're going to talk about certain tips and techniques in today's session. We're going to try and maximize our scoring as far as parajumbles is concerned. And once again, the base that has been used is the SBI Clerk Mains Mock Test 1 from Olive Board. So without further ado, let's kickstart the session and I will move myself away from the screen. So let's just kickstart the session with the question itself. So here's what it says. In the following question, a set of 5 sentences is given, which when properly sequenced form a coherent paragraph. Each sentence has 3 highlighted words. This is a variation that we were talking about, which may or may not be at their correct places. And you might have to rearrange the words to make a meaningful sentence. Arrange the sentences in the correct sequence and answer the questions that follow. Now, the big point that you need to understand here is the words which have been given in bold, each of these words have been misplaced. So we have to identify what the correct sequence of these words is also in each of these sentences. Now, that's not something which is going to deter away from the core element of what you need to do as far as parajumbles is concerned, which is nothing but sequencing all your sentences in the correct order, right? But these misplaced words will definitely create some sense of confusion, right? That's the whole idea. So if you get confused, the chances that you might get that question wrong. So how do we beat that? That is the main objective as far as this particular variation in parajumbles is concerned. Okay, so let's try and look at each of these sentences and figure out where it fits in. So first thing that I try and do is, even before looking at each of these individual words, which is more like a distraction for me, right? मेरा जो main focus है वो है parajumbles को solve करना. ये जो words misplace किए हैं, it's more of a distraction. So I'll not focus on the distraction and I'll concentrate on my main focus, which is to rearrange the sentences in the correct order, right? So if I look at my sentences, what does it say? Here, if you look at the first one, it says at one point some of his. So what is his? His basically refers to your possessive pronoun, uski cheez, right? But whenever I talk about his, have I defined who the person is? If I've not defined that person, this cannot be my starting sentence, correct? Similarly, if you look at the second one gives me a name, right? It gives me Samuelson's paradox. But again, the point is, it is not in the original noun form. It is again in the possessive form because it says Samuelson's paradox, right? And the other clue that I get is it says and yet, right? So words such as and yet, however, but, all of these indicate that there is some change in the direction, right? Now, what do I mean by change in the direction? If the rest of the paragraph was positive, once this set of words come in, it will either become negative, or if the paragraph was starting negative, then once this set of words come in, the paragraph will become positive. So that's the hint. So around B is where my pivot is happening as far as this paragraph is concerned, also known as your inflection point or sometimes also called as the point of inflection. So around B is where the pivot will happen. Look at sentence C. What does it say? For 30 to 40 years after the end of the Second World War, Paul Samuelson was one of the best known economists of all time. So here we have a clearly defined proper noun. So the rest of the sentence basically explains to me who Paul Samuelson was. So in that context, C looks to be a great contender for the beginning of the paragraph. But let's move on and check the other sentences also. What does D say? It again says his name, so it cannot be my starting sentence. And similarly, E also says his reputation, so it cannot be my starting sentence. So it's very clear and evident that my starting sentence has to be C. So on what basis did I arrive at that clue? So based on a lot of your possessive pronouns and let's say which is the introductory statement which talks and introduces the paragraph to me, basis that I will decide what should be my starting statement, right? Let's move on to the next element. What should be the next statement immediately after that? Right. If you look at E, it says his reputation was based on mathematical economics. Nothing theories would mean abstract to non-economists. Obviously, there is a confusion because these words have not been arranged in the proper order. Right. So there is nothing called as nothing theories. It doesn't make any sense. Right. It would mean nothing fits perfectly. So I would say that instead of abstract here, the word should have been nothing. And his reputation is obviously in the correct position. So the only thing that I need to change is the change between abstract and nothing. So what does the sentence say? Abstract theories, that would mean nothing to non-economists, right? So the point that is trying to get conveyed here is it's just a slightly negative statement. Why? Because abstract theories that would mean nothing to non-economists means that his relevance is only for mathematical economics, right? So to non-economists, he doesn't make much of a sense, right? So that's a slightly negative connotation. So obviously from the sequence of statements, I know pretty sure that statement number B is the one where the inflection point or the pivot point is happening. So ideally, E should definitely appear after B because B gives me the point where it will change from positive to negative. Right. Now, why am I saying positive to negative? If you look at statement number C, it is definitely positive, which says he was one of the best known economists of all time. Right. And in this case, if you look at the highlighted words, there doesn't seem to be any change because it is looking to be in the correct order in any case. After the end of Second World War, best known economists. So none of the highlighted words or the bold words need any change in this case, right? So since C was positive and B is my point of inflection, E should definitely appear after B. Now the next question that comes in, is there anything between C and B? Now since C is positive and B is the statement which moves from positive to negative, any statement that appears between C and B will be a positive statement. So let's try and see if there is any other positive statement here, right? It says his name would have been eclipsed. Okay, looks like not fitting in the right order. Let's see. What does eclipse mean? You know, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, which means it's overshadowing something else, right? So it doesn't fit here. Let's see if any of the other two words fit here. His name would have been familiar, not just to other economists and students, but to readers of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and above all Newsweek, where he had a regular column. So regular column makes a lot of sense. Instead of eclipsed here, this word should have been familiar. Okay, that's the correct order. And now Samuelson's fame even eclipsed. His fame overshadowed that of even one of the most famous economists of those times, which was John Maynard Keynes, right? Who had been a major public figure as well as an economist. So eclipsed fits perfectly over here. So that's the only interchange. Column remains at the same position, right? So if you look at this particular statement, I can figure out for sure that this is also a very highly positive statement, correct? Because throughout the statements, it's only talking about him being more famous than John Maynard Keynes and the fact that everyone will know him. So obviously, since this is again a positive statement, so it should appear before B. Right. Now, the next question that comes in is, what happens to A? At one point of time, some of his doubted doesn't make any sense. So since this is a possessive pronoun, this basically requires a noun over here, right? So his mathematics does not make much sense, but his teachers makes a lot of sense, right? So if I fit teachers over here, what happens? At one point, some of his teachers even thought that he might be unemployable because they doubted. Obviously, they cannot do mathematics at that point in time. So they doubted whether he could teach normal economics students, that is people who knew less mathematics than he did, right? So that's the connotation. So this, in a way, is a negative statement. Why? Because his own teachers doubted whether he could teach normal economic students. So that's a negative connotation. So we know for a fact that A has to appear after B. So the next question that comes in is, Where will A appear? Will A appear before E or will A appear after E? That's the next question, right? So if I look at the hint here, B is my point of inflection. It's very clear, right? And yet there is definitely not a heart. There is a paradox. Paradox means what? Paradox means a confusion. कोई चीज दिखने में कुछ लग रही है but होती कुछ और है. It's a convoluted or a confusing situation, right? So, and yet there is a heart doesn't make sense. There is a paradox at the heart of Samuelson's work. See, there is a paradox at the work of Samuelson's heart does not make sense. Now, in this context, when I say at the heart of Samuelson's work, heart here does not refer to the organ heart. Heart here refers to maybe the central point, right? Or the core aspect of Samuelson's work. That's what heart in this particular statement refers to, right? So the sequence here is paradox, heart, and work. So if I look at statement B, it is introducing the move from positive to negative. Now, if I place immediately statement A after statement B, the problem that I would have is that E is slightly more explaining as to why it is negative. If I directly put A before E, there is no context as to why he would not be a great teacher, right? But when I look at statement E, it tends to define that his reputation was based on mathematical economics, and because his reputation was based on mathematical economics, his teachers also doubted that whether he'll be able to teach normal economics to students who knew less mathematics than he did, right? So E basically introduces the core reason as to why his teachers maybe felt that he would not be able to effectively teach economics to normal economic students who knew less mathematics than him. So E introduces the problem because his reputation was based on mathematical economics, and because his reputation was based on mathematical economics, he would probably not be a great teacher to normal economics students. As a result, my sequence turns out to be C, D, B, E, and A. So the one thing which I want you guys to remember is that while it took a lot of time for me to explain the connotation as to how this particular question progressed, actually when you start solving it, it's not that difficult. All you need to do is remain focused and read every single word in the sentence given very carefully, right? So whenever I look and encounter any kind of possessive pronouns, in all tendency, you'll find that there will be some kind of a noun which is being explained by that particular pronoun or by that particular possessive pronoun, right? For example, in this case, it was his. In some other case, it could be her. In some other case, it could be he or she or it, whatever it is, right? But there will be some kind of a noun which probably needs to get defined. So that is probably one way to figure out what could be my sequence of statements. And next thing which we observed closely in this particular question is the tonality. Tone was changing from positive to negative. Sometimes you'll find that the entire passage does not have any change of tone. It will be throughout positive, right? And sometimes it will be throughout negative. Whenever you find inflection points such as and yet, however, but, although, all these are indications that there is some change or some drift that is going to happen, right? Which is where we were able to identify that statement B is giving me that particular clue that it is moving from positive to negative. So if it is moving from positive to negative, all I need to do is cluster all the positive statements together, cluster all the negative statements together, and the inflection point will appear in the middle. That's the objective. Now, once I've clustered the positive and the negative statements together, all I need to do is which statement is leading to which other statement. So what we call as your chains or your linkages. Okay, so as long as I can get my chains or my linkages correctly, I will never go wrong in these kind of questions. So when I talk about E coming ahead of A, the logic was very simple, right? It was giving me a link. What was that link? That first I need to talk about his reputation as a mathematical economist, and then the reason as to why his teachers were doubting that he could teach normal economic students. So that linkage was formed. Similarly, in the beginning also, before I define who Samuelson was, I cannot go on and talk about his name. So that was the link that I got there as well. So if you look at your linkages carefully, if you look at your pronouns and possessive pronouns very carefully, if you look at your tonality very carefully, you're more or less done, right? So if I arrive at the answer, we've got your answer as C, D, B, E, A. And I know that if I look at solving the questions, I'll be pretty easily able to attempt all of those questions. It will not be a challenge because I already know the correct sequence. So let's step into answering the questions now. So one thing which you need to be very careful is, now that I've identified that my sequence is CDBEA, I need to be careful about one critical element, that I need to read my questions very, very carefully. So what is it saying? Second sentence post rearrangement. So which is the second sentence post rearrangement? It is D, and that becomes my answer. Okay. Next, what does it say? Fourth sentence after the rearrangement. What was my answer again? C, D, B, E, A. What's the fourth statement after the rearrangement? It's option E, and that becomes my answer. What's the next question? It says position of sentence A. So what was my answer? C, D, B, E, A. What was the position of sentence A? Fifth position, and that will become my answer. Right. Now what's the next question? It's saying the correct order of highlighted words in sentence 3 post rearrangement. So if you misread the question in this particular case, you will end up answering something else, right? So what is it saying? Sentence 3 ka post rearrangement, C, D, B, E, A, right? If you think of sentence 3 as sentence C, then your answer will go for a toss, because it is saying post rearrangement. Now post rearrangement, what is sentence 3? It is sentence B. And in sentence B, I know what the correct sequence is, and yet there is a paradox at the heart of Samuelson's work. So paradox is first, heart is second, work is third. Paradox is first, heart is second, work is third, and that is my answer. Right. Let's move on to the next question. What does it say? The position of sentence C post rearrangement. So we started off with sentence C only, C, D, B, E, A. Right. So sentence C will be in the first position, and that is definitely my answer. Before we move to the next pattern, this is what I want to highlight. So essentially, it took you some time in figuring out the correct sequence, right? Once you figured out, it basically gives you a very clean 5 marks quite comfortably, right? So technically, if you look at it, should I attempt PJs or not? That's a question that you need to decide how comfortable you are or not. But we've definitely talked about a lot of tricks which can help you as far as solving parajumbles is concerned. But the bigger question is, as far as PJs are concerned, if you get it right, it's like a massive return on your time. So you should definitely look at attempting. But one aspect which you should keep in mind is, do not look at attempting it in the beginning of the section or the end of the section. Now, why am I saying that? Because at the beginning of the section, if you end up doing it wrong, it tends to create a psychological pressure in your mind that, "Arey, galat ho gaya, I've made a mistake, I've wasted so much time," and it will impact the rest of your paper also. Similarly, when you're trying to do this at the end of your session, then again it will lead to a problem, because there is a lot of time pressure at that point in time. So you may not be able to concentrate, and you may end up making some careless mistake. So while people talk about careless mistake, people always talk about quant and DI, but careless mistakes can happen even more easily as far as English is concerned. Just missing one particular word in front of something else, not reading it properly, not understanding the context of what the author is trying to say, all these are nothing but careless mistakes only, right? All these are mistakes that are happening because your focus or your attention is not there on that particular paragraph. So that needs to be avoided. So what happens is, when I talk about quant or when I talk about DI, if I'm in the flow of things, automatically I keep solving the question. Generally, those kind of careless mistakes don't happen. But in English, that problem happens a lot more, because your concentration is not there. Your mind is wandering here and there, and you might miss out a very crucial word or a very crucial phrase in that particular sentence, which could have led you to the correct answer. So which is where, be extremely cautious as far as English is concerned. When you're reading, your entire concentration needs to be there on the sentence and on that paragraph in front of you. That's the only time when you'll be able to get it correctly. Otherwise, what will happen? You'll make some random careless mistakes. The other possibility is, you might end up reading the sentence or that paragraph multiple number of times. Why is that happening? Because when you're reading it the first time, you're not able to retain things. Why are you not able to retain things? Because your entire concentration is not there. So concentrate at the first attempt itself, and ensure that while you're trying to read it, you're not thinking about other things. You're not thinking about quant, you're not thinking about DI section, you're not thinking about what happened at home, nothing. It has to be that particular sentence, that particular paragraph only. Once you start focusing in that manner, you'll be able to do fantastically well as far as English is concerned. So whether to attempt parajumbles or not is a question that you need to decide how comfortable you are. Try and solve a few more questions over the next few days and figure out where you're fitting in, and then decide whether you should attempt or not. And more so, it has to be a decision that needs to be taken on the day of the examination, right? But only thing which I would recommend is, do not look at starting with the parajumble or maybe ending with the parajumble because there are far too many questions that are attached to one particular paragraph itself. So my recommendation would be try to look at it in the middle of the section somewhere so that it becomes a little easier for you to do it without any kind of time pressure, right? That's the whole objective. But once you do it with concentration, it gives you a bunch of marks put together. That's the whole idea, and that's the benefit of attempting parajumbles. Okay, so let's move on to the next question now. Okay, what does it say? It says there is a sentence given below. From the options, choose the one that conveys the same meaning as the given statement. So what's the given statement? It says government and industry are worried, okay, that Microsoft would use its what position to charge fees or otherwise control access to the internet. Now, this is the modifier which is telling me more about internet, or the modifying phrase. Now, what is it saying? It is saying internet is an important new tool for personal and business users. Now, how do I know that this is talking about internet? Because there is a comma here and the word preceding the comma is internet. So this particular phrase, this entire phrase is talking about internet only. I look at an option which tends to use this explanation for internet. Okay. Let's look at the options. It says Microsoft is an important new tool. Definitely not. Microsoft is not the new tool. The new tool is internet. Next, it says Microsoft controls access to the internet by charging fees. Microsoft does not control access to the internet. There is a fear that it might control access to the internet. So there is a change of tone in terms of what the author is saying and what this option says. So this is also eliminated. Right? Look at C. Internet, an important new tool for personal and business users. Perfect. It is fitting in perfectly. The modifier is explaining internet only, but then says has come under the control of Microsoft, and this has worried the government and industry. Now, this has not worried the government and industry because internet has not yet come under the control of Microsoft. It may come under the control of Microsoft. That's the worry. So again, from a tone standpoint, this option also gets eliminated. Right? Now, next, internet is an important new tool for personal and business users. Perfect. And the government and industry are worried that Microsoft would use its position to charge fees or otherwise control it. What is it referring to? It's again referring to internet. So D conveys the sentiment that the author is trying to say in this particular statement. Internet is an important tool and government and industry is worried that Microsoft would use its position to control it or to charge some kind of fees, which was the intent and which is getting captured quite beautifully in option D. And obviously, since only D is correct, all are not correct. So that will be my answer, which is option number D. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, what does it say? In the following question, there are 4 statements marked as A, B, C and D, of which one may or may not be based on the same theme as the other 3. Mark the odd sentence that can be replaced with the bold sentence that follows the theme as your answer. If all the 4 sentences align to the same theme, mark as no replacement required. So this basically is the odd one out kind of a pattern. Wherein I've been given 4 sentences, I have to eliminate one of those sentences which do not fit into the context, right? So here the temptation is that generally you would also try to sequence the statements, which may not be required in this case because I just need to identify which is the statement which is not fitting, right? So if you try to sequence the statements here, yeah, it's a good strategy overall, but it may end up wasting a lot of time for you. So the only thing that you need to worry about here is that particular statement fitting with the other 3 statements or not? If you sequence it, it will help, but it will also end up wasting a lot of precious time for you. So the ideal strategy for you would be to try and see which of the statements does not fit in the context, right? The temptation of sequencing is fine, but you should ideally do that when you're not able to figure out anything. Only then you should try and look at sequencing, right? So with this basic thought in mind, let's try and attempt this question. So what does it say? Dogs are loyal and obedient, but require more attention and exercise, including regular walks. Okay. Then it says first of all, it says firstly, then it says it looks like we've underestimated the depth of the bond cats can form with their people. Okay. C says many people think of dogs as loyal, love-filled companions and cat as cute beasts that tolerate us. But according to 2019 research, cats can get just as bonded to their human friends as dogs do. This pretty much looks like the introductory statement for me here, right? Then it says this may not come as a huge surprise to those who live with cat companions, but it suggests 2 important things, right? Now, the big question here is, I'm very much tempted to look at A as part of the sequence, but What is A saying? A is more specifically talking about dogs. But what is the intent of this particular set of sentences? It is trying to say that dogs are great, but technically cats are also as equally likely to get bonded with their human counterparts. That's the whole core crux or the theme of this particular paragraph. So in that context, if I look at it, C looks to be the statement which starts off with, and when I say this may not means this is referring to what? This refers to the fact that cats can get just as bonded to their human friends as dogs do. So this is referring to this particular phrase, right? So there is a definite linkage or a connection between C and D, right? I don't really know where the sequence is, but I know that C and D are connected. Then if C and D are connected, it also talks about suggesting two important things. If it is suggesting two important things and it says firstly, then automatically your D and B are also connected, right? But if you look at A is very specifically talking about dogs, right? And here I'm talking about two important things. Then bringing in dogs over here will not make any sense whatsoever, right? What will make sense is looking at this particular statement. It says additionally. So firstly was my first point and additionally was my second point. It shows that dogs don't have a monopoly on secure social bonding with Homo sapiens. It's also fitting into the context of what we are trying to say. Let's call this statement as E, so it fits in perfectly. So while I'm not really looking or bothered about the sequence of these statements, it's very evident that D will definitely follow C. That this which is getting explained is basically coming from C only. And then it talks about two important things. And the two important things are basically your firstly and your additionally. So which of the things which do not fit? Statement number A is the one which does not fit. So there is a replacement required. Your C, D and B definitely fit, and A will be the sentence which will be eliminated. So in the context of the questions that we looked at, did you find them really challenging? It's not, right? I mean, it's a fairly straightforward set of questions that could have been attempted if you have your complete focus and concentration on reading that question and deciphering the nuances of what is being said in those statements. If you do that, none of these questions were that challenging at all, right? Again, coming back to the core theme, as far as parajumble questions are concerned, what we are looking at is essentially identifying the introductory statement, identifying at what are my chains or what are my linkages. And how do I do that? I look at various things like your inflection points, your pronouns and other hints, past tense or present tense. All of those can also help me figure out what could be the sequence of statements. And once I've done that, you're more or less done as far as parajumbles is concerned. Don't get distracted by the change of positioning of the words. Right, you can easily figure out those meanings, right, in the context, and even if you're not able to figure out, you still know the meaning of the overall sentence, right? So don't get distracted or worried if the positioning of those individual words get changed. That's not going to cause you too much harm. Now coming to odd man out questions, again approach will be pretty similar, identifying the introductory statement, identifying your linkages, but don't get into the temptation of sequencing those statements. If you sequence, it's fine, but it's going to waste another 10-15 seconds for you. But what you should look at doing instead is, kya ye statement yahan pe fit hoga ki nahi? Will this statement fit here or not? And that is the only thing required as far as odd man out is concerned, right? So unless it comes to a situation where you're not able to figure out anything, then you try and sequence your statements. Otherwise, just try and look at eliminating which one does not fit into the context, and that will be good enough. Right? Now, the third pattern which we attempted today was basically a particular sentence given. Always look at what that particular sentence is talking about. Look at the tone of what the author is trying to convey and which of the options conveys that particular tone and uses the right kind of adjectives for the subject of the sentence as well. So once you're able to identify that, you'll be able to solve such questions also quite easily. Right? So this was in a nutshell the session that we had planned for you as far as your parajumbles and the variants were concerned. So I hope you enjoyed this particular session. Keep practicing, keep working hard. And the thought that I want to leave you with today is, now I'm talking about 10 evils or 10 sins. Now why am I bringing them up to you today? Because we are talking about Dashahara, or as we split it, we can call it as Dashahara. 10 things to overcome or 10 things to defeat. So which are the 10 things that we should try and overcome? One is definitely the arrogance or the ego. Even if we are best prepared, it's important to let go of arrogance. The next important thing is ensure that we are not participating in any kind of cruelty either to the environment, to the surroundings, to the animals, or to people in general. That's the next sin. The next thing which we talk about is letting go of the anger, right? Whatever anger is there, let's just get rid of it, because whatever we do when we are angry, it tends to have negative repercussions later. Let's just let go of anger. Attachment, being too attached to something can lead to unwanted stress at times. So let's control our level of attachment towards various things. That's the next thing which we're talking about. Then the greed of expecting or wanting a lot more than what is required has actually led to a lot of chaos in the world, right? So let's try and control our greed as well. That's the next element. Then when I say impulse here, I'm not talking about instinct. I'm talking about the impulsive behavior wherein we do a lot of things in the moment and regret our actions later. So it's important that while you allow your intuition to work sometimes, you should also think and ponder what I'm doing or what I'm about to do. Is it going to have any negative repercussions later? So always think about the consequences before you start or attempt doing something. That's the impulsive behavior we're talking about. Then it's important that we get rid of jealousy. It has not taken anyone anywhere. So it's important that we focus on our abilities, on our skills, and how do we move forward rather than worrying about what's happening with someone else's life. Because whenever you get into someone else's life, it's never going to keep us happy. We will always compare ourselves to someone who's better than us, and it will always lead to negative thoughts in our mind. So let's let go of jealousy. The next is let go of procrastination, which is avoiding doing things either due to two reasons. One, pure lethargy. मुझे नहीं करने का मन कर रहा है, I don't want to do it. Avoid that. Second, if it is a procrastination because of something which scares you, then remember this, डर के आगे जीत है. I'm not advocating Mountain Dew here, but definitely once you overcome fear, what's the next thing? Victory, right? So if you're procrastinating either because of laziness or because of fear, let go of both and do what you're supposed to do at the right time. As the Nike slogan says, just do it. Next thing I want to overcome is hatred. Hatred towards anything, hatred towards others, hatred stemming from being judgmental. Let's let go of that as well. Then the next thing is overcoming selfishness, and let's try and be selfless towards others and help others in whatever way we can. That is overcoming selfishness. And last but not the least, let's not be indecisive. Let's be firm. Let's take decisions. Let's take actions which are going to lead us in the right direction, right? So Dashera talks about defeating the 10 heads of Ravana, defeating the 10 sins, and these are the general 10 sins that many of us suffer from. Let's try and defeat these sins, overcome these sins, and get better at what we do and focus on our responsibilities, on our challenges, and ensure that we win in those challenges, right? So on that note, wishing you all a fantastic Dashera, happy Navratri, and an excellent week ahead, because there is a lot of effort still to be put in, and I'm sure that each one of us together is going to crack SBI clerk mains next week, right? You with me? Yes, we're going to crack this exam and we're going to celebrate Dashera wonderfully in a lot of positivity and with a lot of happiness. So on that note, I bid adieu to you in this particular session, and I'll see you in the next session, and it's another interesting one in store for us. So until then, keep working hard, keep preparing, and have a fantastic week ahead.